Simply Tammy.
It's a blessing that I'm here, I'm alive. No, I never ever have to cry, cause it's something I know will always work for me on my side. Not a thing I even have to fight, All things work together for my good. Life speaks if you listen, it might be sound. Watch the love come alive. Sharing the truth that inspires, Sharing the truth that inspires, Sharing the truth that inspires. All things work together for my good. Life speaks if you listen, it might be sound. Watch the joy come alive, watch the joy come alive. Sharing the truth that inspires.
Inspired to love, inspired to grow, inspired to heal, inspired to live. Simply Tammy.
Hello, welcome back to the Simply Tammy Show. I'm your host, Simply Tammy, and we are back with another Life Speaks segment. It is such an honor to bring these amazing people before you, people who have stories of triumph, stories of challenges, but it all is wrapped up in God's divine providence. So I have a woman here with me tonight that is doing some amazing things in her industry. She specializes in several areas that we're going to talk about. So help me welcome to the Simply Tammy Show, Tamara Houston.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you
so
for
much.
saying yes to being here with us this evening.
Absolutely.
All right. So just to jump in to get to know you, I have your bio in front of me, but I always like to ask, if I didn't have the bio in front of me, who would you say Tamara is?
Oh, wow. Well, first, I would say I am an excellent wife, an awesome mother, and a boss.
Okay.
I would real simple, cut to the chase.
Yes. I love it. Excellent wife, awesome mother, and a boss.
Yes.
Okay. So I know that you, according to your bio, you're a clinical social worker for over 15 years.
That's correct.
And you founded Renewal Life Counseling. What year did you go into business for yourself?
So that would have been private practice, like completely solo, was 2015. But I had been doing contract work prior to that, to like 2012, 2013. So
okay,
it's been a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was that an easy transition for you to go from being employed or being contracted to say, I'm going to step out solely on my own?
No, there's a story behind that. So I was doing contract work. I loved the contract work in and out. I didn't have to worry about the overhead and the nuts and bolts of the business. I made good money. I was very comfortable where I was, but things change, right? And so I was asked to start getting paneled with insurances on my own, and I knew nothing about that at all, like being on panel with an insurance. So I learned that process. I also wanted to work with children, and the practice that I worked with didn't want children like as clients. So what I decided was, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to work this contract job and I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out private practice. So I worked that job for a year, and working in hospice for 8 years, I was used to going into homes. So I was like, okay, I can start my practice out just like going into homes. So I did that for a year. I was not on any panels, so I did not get paid.
Wow. Okay.
But what I did is I knew that there was like an insurance or two. If I figured those two out, that I had a year to bill.
Okay.
So I worked on those first, and then once I got on panel, I was able to back bill and get paid for a whole year. So it really worked out because I was like getting all this money coming in at one time, which allowed me to then move on into brick and mortar. And that was pretty much how that transition happened. So,
Okay.
yeah, it was not my plan at all. It didn't feel forced, but it also was not like, there wasn't any strategy behind it.
Right.
It was
So
just kinda
it hadn't been a vision or a goal to always be.
No, not at all.
So then what were you dreaming? Like, what was your vision or goal? Did you have another path that you wanted to take, or you were going to be comfortable working for someone else, or both?
Well, technically as a contractor you are, but again, being in that particular situation, what I learned was what the true definition of contract work is. And so there was a little bit more oversight than the government actually allows, but I look at every experience that I have as a learning opportunity. Being in that space really taught me how to operate business, whether it was W-2 or 1099 on my own, and how to do it the proper way. So while it was a good experience for me, that kind of led to me doing consulting work as well. So I've had the opportunity to work with other practitioners that are wanting to start out in solo practice or expand their practice to group practice, and teach them some of the same things that I learned trial by fire. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But it was not my goal. I wanted to be an accountant, then a nurse, then something else, an engineer, all the other things. Therapy that wasn't the business for me.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So I was going to ask, and you kind of alluded to it. Did you choose counseling, or did counseling choose you?
It definitely chose me. We were talking about a God moment.
Okay.
Just my whole career, to be quite honest with you. But I started out working in hospice, like I said, after grad school. So it wasn't my first job. I started at a nursing home. I didn't even work there for a year. But I knew that was not the place for me. When people say they're the first, and I was the only Black director, I was the youngest, I was it was a lot of that. So it was a lot of pressures, and then the environment just wasn't the best. So I knew that that's not what I wanted to do long term.
And this was during your hospice?
This was prior to hospice.
Okay.
So while I was there, I was like, okay, I've always wanted to work in hospice. Like, I wanted to focus on hospice while I want to do my practicum there, but I couldn't because it was a different path.
Okay.
That was more direct practice, and what I was doing was macro, like nonprofit program development. That was my focus in grad school.
Okay.
So I couldn't do it. So I'm in the nursing home, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to apply to go back to school for nursing school, but I'm also going to look for another job. So I applied to a hospice in my hometown. I went to the interview. I cried during the interview. I was like, oh gosh, these people not gonna hire me. Because I just went in and just cried. But I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put it out there and see what happens. And about 30 days later, the same day that I got the acceptance letter for nursing school, I got the job offer to hospice.
Really?
The same day. And I said, I called my husband, of course, and I was like, well, listen, I don't know what to do, because I thought I would get one but not both. And he was like, well, Tamara, you've been talking about hospice for a minute. So if you can always go back to school. But he was like, I don't know, if you're going to get this opportunity. So that started part of that journey with hospice as well. So I get into hospice, and my mentors, my clinical supervisees, they were all clinical social workers. So I just had my master's. I was licensed as a master social worker, but I didn't have the clinical license, which is a social worker's certification to work independently in private practice. I didn't have that yet.
Okay.
But everyone around me in hospice either had it or was working on it. Well, if you got it, I'm getting it too. So I just started doing that maybe within 2 months of working in hospice. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I was just like, oh yeah, well, I'll do this. And my mentors they really spoke into me as far as what they saw in me that I didn't see in myself. I thought I'm a great leader. I can take something, I can like make something out of nothing. So program development, putting things together, numbers, like that's my judge. So I'm like, okay, I don't see how these two mix. But I mean, some opportunities came up and I went forward, and contract work, private practice, here I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So where are you originally from? You said you interviewed in your hometown.
From the country, Seneca. You don't catch that twang there.
No, I hear the accent. I just didn't know it was from. So what had you crying in the interview, Tamara?
Oh gosh. So I cannot remember what the question that they asked me, but I was sharing a story of one of the residents who we had 3 halls. And this particular resident was on like the far hall on the right. And she was, had dementia and had started doing some like aggressive behaviors or whatever toward her roommate. Not intentional, of course, but just thinking that she's helping. So she was moved to the middle hall. And one day I was sitting at the nurse's station documenting, and I saw her walking down the hallway, and she was just like walking, saying like, where's my room? Where's my room? Move, like looking around. And it just broke my heart. I was like, I can't do this.
Wow.
When she was on the other house, she knew where she was going. It was just such a change for someone that already had like a cognitive impairment. I was like, I can't participate in this. And some of the reasons why she was moved, it's like it was just kind of make things easier for everybody, and instead of trying to figure out a way to make it work where she was.
Right.
And I was not in agreement with that at all. So I was just like, you know what, this is not for me. This isn't for me, because I can't do too many of those. Right. So, and I was boohoo crying. Like, I'm just like, why are you crying about this? Maybe it worked in my favor, I guess.
Yeah. They saw that your heart was really in what you do. So when I met you, I think was it last year or 2022? I think it was last year.
Yeah, I think last year.
I hosted a grief seminar and was referred to one of your colleagues, who then referred me to you to come to that session to talk about grief and therapy. And you shared some things there about hospice. If you could share something that you think people need to know about hospice that most people don't know, what would you say that most people are misinformed about hospice from the time that you spent?
Yeah.
Hey, just for a moment, I wanted to interrupt you. So no, the video has not messed up. This is an intentional interruption. Just for me first to say thank you, because if you've gotten to this point, that means you're still watching this interview, and hopefully you're hearing some things that are helping you, encouraging you, inspiring you. But I thank you for taking the time to listen, to get to know some of these amazing people, and to be encouraged and inspired by their stories. Second of all, I want to give you an opportunity to partner with me. If there is something that you think you can offer to this platform, either hands-on if you're local to the Greenville area, if you know some guests that you think I should interview, or if you see the transitions that we've gone through from when I started with Women Who Win and now doing this in my own space, and you say, I want to support that vision, I want to give to it, we welcome any type of support that you have to give. We also are going to have opportunities for organizations and businesses. You don't have to be local to Greenville, but we can spotlight you during our show segments. If any of that sounds interesting to you and you want to participate, shoot me an email. I'm going to put the email address on the screen, and I want to give you all of the information on how you can partner and connect so that we can keep bringing these people before you, sharing their amazing stories, offering them a safe space to share their journeys, and to also help encourage you along yours. So thank you again for listening, and now back to this interview.
I think one of the biggest things is when we immediately think about hospice, we think that a person's condition is imminent, like they only have a couple of days or maybe a couple of weeks. And I'm not saying that is never the case, but I would say maybe about 50% to 60% of my caseload at any point in time were like people who continue to meet the Medicare guideline for to be hospice appropriate, but didn't necessarily meet the guidelines in terms of what we think in society is for hospice. And so there are two different things. Like, certainly you have a guideline that's set by the government that says if someone has a condition that without aggressive treatment it could result in death within 6 months or less, that's the guideline for that. But you have to take into consideration the care that's being provided to them, the support that's being provided to them from an emotional standpoint, like having this team of people coming in, taking care of you. When you factor in those types of things, someone making sure that you're getting your meals, you're getting changed, you're not having any issues with wounds and that type of stuff, you're getting medicine to help keep you comfortable. Those things, I'm not saying that they add to your life, but they certainly add to your quality of life. And sometimes I think individuals they kind of get this little spunk, almost like they want to fight a little bit more, or they just want their last days, however long that's going to be, to be a good quality of life. So having that team makes a huge difference, and that's whether that's inpatient or outpatient, because they're both. There are opportunities for both. But I think that's one of the biggest things that people get hung up on is they're like, oh, so the minute you hear hospice, it's like, oh, granny dying tomorrow. And no, that's not the case. Like, there are other factors that are considered, the stage of disease, whether or not they're eating and drinking. I would say the other biggest thing is the process of what happens when someone dies. There are things that we hear, that we see, that aren't the most comfortable, like the death rattle, right? The losing of weight, maybe the modeling of like fluid and stuff in the limbs. And what we don't understand is, like, you and I, we're fine right now. Our body is going to communicate to us when we're hungry. It's going to communicate to us when we're sleepy, when we need beverage, all of those things. But when you are at end of life, your body starts to shut down. And that is a very natural process for it to begin to shut down. You don't need to get up and run. You don't have to get up and get kids up and be, you don't need all of this energy, so you don't need as much food. You don't need as much water. But there's this desire, and I get it, there's this desire to feed, to offer beverage and stuff like that, and you can offer it, but then there comes a point where your loved one may say, no, I don't want it. And it's not because like they're trying to die, it's not that. It's just their body is really communicating to them, you don't need that. Like, all you need here is this little bit of water, right, to help sustain you where you are. It's about sustaining the body where it is. We need more, right? But a person that is not just on hospice, but also has a condition that would qualify them for hospice care, eventually they don't need as much as you and I need.
Wow, I've never heard it put that way. So you offer virtual counseling in South Carolina as well as North Carolina and Florida. Do you also offer in-person services as well, or is all of your therapy virtual?
All of it is virtual. So the whole group practice, we're all virtual.
Okay. So what have been some challenges that you have faced? Because our community has not always been pro-counseling, pro-therapy. Yeah. And I'm sure you probably have some stories or some interesting occurrences of people maybe coming to try it, sitting there like, what you gonna tell me that I don't already know? So talk to us about some of the challenges you've had in some therapy sessions or situations.
Geez, so many. I was like, let me wrap my brain about this. I certainly think in our community, let me start with men first. Because usually my men that I end up working with, they are very hesitant and resistant to opening up. And I mean, we can get into that certainly, but what I usually share with them is, first of all, I'm here to help. I'm going to show up. You got to show up, right? But also, like, it is not my desire as a female clinician to try to like make you soft. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I am trying to help you to understand is normalizing conversation about just life stressors, things that are happening anyway, whether or not you come to therapy or not. Right. And I'm not the expert here between the two of us, client therapist. I have a set of skills that I bring to the table, and I'm good at utilizing those set of skills. But you are the expert on you. So there may not be a lot of advice that I can tell you, but I'm not here to give advice. That's not what I do. Everything I do is based in a theoretical framework. There's usually, I mean, there's small talk, you know, kind of how's the last week been going for you, that kind of thing. But in terms of the actual therapy work, I'm not doing anything that's not based in some type of theory, some type of therapeutic model. I'm asking these questions because I want you to think about these issues that you're facing, the way that you show up in the world, in a different way. It's just a perhaps. It's just, I wonder if you thought about it this way. I wonder if you can be curious about this, right? You're going to take that when you leave our session, 50, 60-minute session, and you're going to go out and do life, right? So life has more of a persuasion over you than I do, right? When you come back, I want us to have a relationship. So building rapport where you're okay with me asking questions to hold you accountable. And sometimes I think just because of like the nature of men, sometimes they are problem solvers, right? They can be very deep thinkers and they want it done. Like, we don't need to sit here and play around. Like, let's get it fixed. I get that, right? But if there can be an invitation to like slow it down a little bit, because the pace at which you've been going, the way in which you've been thinking about life, perhaps the way that you've been going about problem solving, it just needs to be tweaked a little bit. That is not the totality of who you are as a man, right? So it's not like trying to strip anything away from you. It's get what you need, build on what you have already because you're the expert, and take that and really show up in your masculinity and your, you know, problem solving abilities, all the things that feel very natural to you.
Okay.
So that would be one. I like to talk about the men because, you know, it's, I think, like, man, our men are so needed. They are so needed. I was thinking the other day, on Easter, actually, my niece was like playing around doing something. She was just acting out. And, you know, it's a house full of women, right? And we're saying, you got to quit doing such and such and such. When her daddy came in, she shut that whole thing down. And I said to everybody, I was like, this is why we need our men.
Absolutely.
Like, this is why we need our men to be well, right? So that they can show up like their presence is known, and they're respected. So I just like to want to encourage like the men. It's okay. Like, you're not gonna come to therapy. Ain't nobody gonna bite you, nothing like that. Like, it is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But I think another piece is like that advice piece. I have heard said in front of me, out in the streets, just all around, like, I could be a therapist because I could sit and talk to people all day and give advice. And listen, I promise you, if that is all I had to do, if that was the extent of what I had to use my brain for, I would do this job 1,000 times over. I would pick it every day because I have an opinion about everything. Everything. My grandma tell you that I have an opinion about everything.
You got a lot of advice.
I have a lot of advice, but it's not just that. It is any clinician, I think, worth their salt is going to continue with continuing education. Things are constantly learning. We are ever evolving. So there's always new things to learn, new ways in which to tackle the work that we do. And so it's really important to know that when you go into a therapy setting, that you're not going to develop a new friendship. Your therapist is not your friend. You're not going there to just get advice, just like, we just spilling the tea or whatever. The things that are being shared with you, the way in which you're being challenged, there's a reason for that. And if you actually do the work, because it is work, it should not feel good all the time. Like there should be days where you're like, you know what, I'm getting ready to meet with Tamara, and I'm kind of thinking about not doing so. You know what I mean? Because this isn't fun.
Yeah.
But I think anything worth having is worth fighting for. So the challenge that comes with making improvement and getting to an optimal level of wellness, it's not going to come with ease, because if it came with ease, then what do you need me for? Right? If taking out your gallbladder or getting a root canal or having brain surgery, if those things were easy to do, what you need the surgeon for?
Right.
There's no need for that. So it's just putting that into perspective. If you're wanting advice, I'm sure you have friends. Talk to your friends. But with me, we're going to do work, and I have no problem doing a little therapeutic confrontation and saying to a client, what are we doing? Because I want to know what, because this is time, resources we can't get back. So if we're working, let's work. If we're not working, that's okay. Like, and that is another piece. It is okay to do some work. And because there's so much changing that is taking place, it's also okay to pause, right? It's okay to pause. You have that conversation with your clinician and come to an agreement about what that's going to look like, perhaps what you're going to work on during that time. Or it may be a transfer to another therapist. Maybe with that therapist you've gone as far as you can go, and that is okay as well. Like, it's okay to make those changes to get what you need, because again, I think any clinician they're more concerned about you getting to your therapeutic goal and being well than anything else. This is my job, but I really do want people to be well.
That's good.
Bottom line. So if I'm not the one, I'm okay with that. I'm okay. We can work together to find you somebody that's going to be a good or better fit for you.
That's good. That's good. So, at some point in your journey, you decided to launch a brand called Healing Through Time. And I think we have the image of that and some of the services you offer that we can put up on the screen. So talk to us about Healing Through Time and what was the why behind that and what do you do through that?
Yeah. So Healing Through Time is my passion project.
Okay.
So it will, from the time I worked in hospice, so I worked in hospice shortly after I got out of grad school. So it was like 2006 up until 2012, I believe. So worked in that industry for a while, and I'm just always thinking about things that I want to do, So I was at a conference and sitting beside somebody, and we were talking about writing a book, and I was like, I never had thought about writing a book. Like, that's not something that I want to do. Well, then shortly after that, like literally months later, we ended up doing an anthology together. So that came about, and I was like, okay, Tamara, like what is this? Because this, again, I do things backwards. So I'm like, this was not in the plan. I don't know that there was a plan. So then I was meeting with my financial advisor, and I'm sharing with him, 𝘋𝘪𝘷𝘪𝘥𝘦, by the way. So I was sharing with him some thoughts that I had for projects that I wanted to work on for the year. And it takes me a minute to finalize my decision. Once I finalize the decision, it's practically done. But it takes me, I'm real anal. I'm gonna think it all the way through, honey, to nothing.
And overthinking
all of that. So I'm talking to him about it, and he says, well, my thought was to do a grief journal and a card deck, and I was wanting to do the card deck first, and I was like, but I'm just not gonna get that done before the end of the year. And like literally, I had wrote it, rewrote it, wrote it again multiple times, like over the years, like different things that I wanted to have in the card deck. And he said, well, Tamara, look, pick one. Like, pick one. Which do you think would be the easier for you to do right now? And I'm like, well, I had been looking on like KDP and all that stuff. I was like, I think I could probably do the book. Like, it doesn't seem like it would be that difficult. He was like, okay, you got 3 months. You got 3 months. And I'm gonna tell you, the journal in itself is 245 pages with 45 grief prompts in there. And it's a creative journal. So you can color, you can write, there's mandalas in there, all different types of things that you can do. But that process gave me a new appreciation for people that create stuff. And I've always said that therapists are creative people anyway. I think you have to be, but like a physical product. Because you know how like you sharing your gift with someone and they're like trying to negotiate with you on the price. The price is the price. Because I know how many days I sit at my computer and I'm trying to line up, like make sure the lines are even, spaced out, going through how many times I've read through it. And it's more blank pages for writing than there is like pages with words on it. But still, the amount of time that I just looked at the screen of page at 245 pages over and over again and catching a page and having to like figure out how do I move? how do I adjust this? How do I make it right?
Yeah.
And so the lesson in that is for me not to like sell myself short. And not that I have like this desire to like negotiate with people, but I mean, I think there was a part of me that was like, okay, like you set the value for what you want to spend your money on. No, that's all right. When people create something, trust and believe that they have put a lot of thought into the product that they're putting out. And it's probably not even up to their full standard, to be quite honest with you. They probably wanted to do something else or wanted the design to be slightly different, right? But I was working on that and I read, I was listening to, just happenstance, came across this TED Talk. And the gentleman, I wish to this day I could remember who it was, but I was just contemplating editing again. In the TED Talk, he said something like, there are a lot of people that have ideas. There's a lot of ideas that are never going to come to fruition because they're just going to be ideas, because we will talk ourselves out of the thing. And if it's perfection that you're trying to attain, how does that happen when you're the only one who's laying eyes on it? Right? You got to put it out there, let other people see it, make a decision that criticism is going to be constructive criticism, because you're going to take that and you're going to make it better. And after that, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm done. Yeah. And I put that out there. And then, so that was like November of 22. And then January, February of the next year, I had the card deck done. And so, yeah, it just kind of happened so quickly. And my desire for that ultimately was, one, I wanted to have something with my name on it. I wanted to have something with my name on it out in the community that I created. And I wanted my girls to see that. I have an older son too. He's getting ready to be 25. So he's been with me in the trenches. But my girls, I was like, I want them to see me go through this process and see me open the box, right? And see me put all of this stuff together. So I wanted something with my name on it. But I also wanted something that I could share with my clients that were presenting with grief issues. So any client that I have that presents with that particular subject matter, that's one of the resources that we use, and I just send it to them and we walk through it. So there's no charge to them. That was just kind of my initial idea, was let me get something out there to my clients. And it's just kind of transformed into its own thing. So I have the these materials, the journal and the card deck. I started a podcast. I relaunched that last year during my birthday month. And so I have that. I also do a free table talk every month. So grief table talk. I have on the website, you can go on there and you can see the dates. I do that every other month.
Okay.
So it's topical in nature. So I do actually have like about 15-minute presentation prepared. I present that on the topic, and then it's just open to whomever's there. And sometimes there's one person, sometimes there's, 4 or 5. I've had people from all over the world to join.
Wow.
All over the world. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's just been a blessing. So that is something that I want to continue to build on, hopefully one day transitioning that into a nonprofit, because hospice work, end of life care, and that work, grief, bereavement, that is something that I am very passionate about. I think we need to have more open, honest dialogue about grief and bereavement. And it doesn't need to be when we need it. Right? Because at that point, a lot of the decisions that need to be made, a lot of the information that we need to make those decisions, it's just too much coming at us at one time, and it's an overload to the system. So I want to normalize the conversation. So we, in my family, I'm like the weird one, because grief and bereavement to me is like dinner table talk. But it's not that way typically for, most families, or just society at large. It's not dinner table talk.
Right.
But I know that's something that we're guaranteed. I've seen more people in my career die than I care to say. You know what I mean? But it's been a blessing to be able to witness that transition, but still, I've seen it, and I've witnessed like what happens in family dynamics when they don't have certain things together and these discussions don't take place. It just makes it very difficult, and it doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be. Yeah.
So considering Life Speaks, and I will applaud you for doing your own interior design on your book. After I released my first book in 2017, I actually did that as a business for a few years, because I know, like you said, the tedious work that it takes to make sure, and I'm like, I train this stuff, so I know how to use it. So I can imagine someone who's not as comfortable using these tools trying to do it. So hats off to you for doing that yourself. But when I mention Life Speaks, it talks about God's divine providence. I think it's happening to us all the time. It has become one of my life's mantra outside of the title of the book, because God just orchestrates things in our lives, has a way of we showing up at the right place at the right time, and something happens, we meet somebody, or it's the right connection. So when you think about Life Speaks, can you think about a memorable moment that you've had along your journey that that it was fully God orchestrated, nothing Tamara had to do with it?
Absolutely. This would have been 2005. Yeah. 2003. So it had to be around 2003. I was standing in my great grandmother's kitchen in an apartment in which she had never lived in. My grandmother rented this apartment for my great grandmother, thinking that she would eventually come home. She had a brain tumor. She never came home. She ended up going to a nursing home in Brevard, and that's where she died. I'm standing in the living room. She had passed, and I'm looking out the window, and I'm watching my family celebrate, grieve. I don't know. To this day, I still don't. It was a lot of stuff going on.
So this was like right after the service, doing what families, like
this was
gathering?
before. This was before.
Okay,
and
so it was during that time, before. Okay,
and so right around that time, two of my aunts her children had they were like months apart.
Oh wow!
From each other. But I'm standing there and I'm watching. And I had what now I say is just a curiosity. Like, I'm a nerd. So I immediately started asking myself, like, what is this? Like, is this a party? Is this like, what is going on?
So,
you know what I mean?
You were questioning their gathering and festivities.
Yes. So I'm very curious about what this exchange is. I felt overwhelming emotions, like a mix of emotions. I was angry, I was sad, I was also happy though. I remember like some happy moments, being able to see some family that I hadn't seen for a while. But that moment really marks the start of what I now know was my life's work.
Okay.
Because that moment, I remember I started talking in grad school to advisors about doing hospice work, being told no. Where my apartment was, I lived right down the street from Vista Care. Like when you were going out of my driveway, you could see the Vista Care building down there, which is a hospice. There were just so many moments that like hospice just kept coming up. I had a conversation with a family member and I was sharing with her, you know, my after graduation plans, and I said, I think I want to go into hospice. And she said, no, you can't do that. You can't do that kind of work. Well, people don't know, but I'm waiting for somebody to tell me something that I can't do. So I was like, okay. And then from there, it just kind of, just transformed into what I'm doing now. I thought that coming out of hospice that I would leave hospice work and at some point when I retire, I would go back to volunteer. Now that I did have a plan for, that I would go back to volunteer. I did not think that when I got into private practice that grief and bereavement would be such a cornerstone of my practice and what I'm able to share with people like all over the world and talk about. I did not think that would transition into my private practice work at all. And so even as I talk about the development of my practice, the development of healing through time, and almost anything else that I do, which is really just focused around trauma, grief, and bereavement, it all really starts with that moment, sitting in her kitchen.
Wow.
And having this experience. And again, I did not have, at that time, I did not have any intention on being a therapist. That was not my plan.
Wow.
Then.
So how old you were you even in college then? Or
I was in grad school.
Okay.
Yeah, I was in grad school.
Okay.
So all of this happened like my last year in grad school.
So what did you had you gone to undergrad for? Was it for
child and family studies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And realized I didn't want to work with children. So it was
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that moment was that was the start of everything that I've built, or really God designed, to be quite honest with you, because I mean, I don't have any problem saying like I didn't want to be a therapist. That's just not, it's not really how my brain works, but it does. I get, you know what I mean? I'm a teacher at heart, which is why I think I am such a good therapist, because I want people to understand what you're dealing with.
Right.
What it is you're dealing with, and to know that they have options. And if you got option A, B, and C, we can explore all of them. We can go down that rabbit hole and see what's going to happen. Like, that's okay for us to do that. So yeah, that was my moment.
Do you remember, because I heard you say you were standing there looking at the family and wondering like, do you remember what you felt at that moment? Like, were you confused as to why they were like, did you feel like they should have been crying instead of laughing, or like what was going on with you emotionally?
In that moment I was angry and I was crying because it, like, what my experience was on the inside and what I saw happening outside did not match up. I now later, know that is the difference between like grieving and mourning. What we see, what's observable, and what happens on the inside. We have a very personal internal experience of our losses, and then there's what everybody else sees, right? And so it also helped me to later on, as I examine this, that a person's grief presentation isn't going to look the same for everyone. We're not cookie cutter people.
Exactly.
And just without grief, take grief off the table. It's a lot of folk around here that they look good, but baby, toe up from the flow up on the inside. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so without
Absolutely.
that, we have that going on within us anyway.
Yeah.
So that is
Wow.
just another facet
Yeah.
of just our human nature. You know what I mean? And so it has allowed me to come off my pedestal and not be judgmental about someone else's experience. Because you cannot just look at someone and assume because they're not crying or laughing or this or that they are not having some other type of conflicting emotion happening on the inside.
Right.
You know, we're not really taught and encouraged to share what is really going on with us. Like, how you doing? I'm okay, girl. Or I asked somebody that the other day, and they said I'm okay, but their face told me something completely different.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I wish I didn't have that in me, but like I see that sometimes. I was like, oh gosh, here I go. Like now I want to know. Like I want to know what is really going on with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that I was angry and I was crying. And it was again not what I was seeing everybody else doing in that moment. Yeah.
Are we able to bring the image back up? Is your contact information on
It is
this? Okay.
at the bottom.
So is this the best way? If you could you talk to us about your table talk, your podcast, your products, the journal and card that. Is this the best way, the website, the best way for people to contact you?
It is the website, and then you'll find the email address on there. But everything, like getting all of this information, the sign-ups for the table talk, the grief support group that will be happening, all of that information is on there. And I'm steady, like, working to bring more to the table. So this year I'm hoping to add, no, ain't no hope, I'm adding a community directory for, because again, this is, I mean, even though I'm the founder of this, like I can't take everybody, right? My goal is to connect people. So there'll be a community directory there. I'm working on a workbook. I'm working on retreats.
Okay.
Working on a children's book. So I got a lot going on that will be added to that in the years to come. So I'm really excited about this vehicle and where it will go. Yeah.
So are your social media handles on your website as well? Because I know, as you said, you're working on things, your retreat and books.
On the Healing Through Time, yeah.
Okay.
It's on there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal. So one question that I like to ask standard, and then after that I'm going to have you just give some words of inspiration and encouragement. It can be in the area of grief, counseling, whatever you feel led to leave with those that are watching, to just keep us more informed about our journey. If you had to name a song, so those that know me know I love music, so one of my staple questions is, if you had to name a song to describe this season of your life.
Oh, easy. Jill Scott, Living My Life Like It's Golden.
Okay.
Golden.
Okay.
Hands down. Hands down.
Okay.
Golden. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
all right.
It's a fun song. And I think it's reflective of, even if things aren't perfect. Like we should, there's some areas in which we should be shooting for perfection, but from a spiritual standpoint, we ain't never gonna get there, but you should still try. Right? Is that I want to show up every day as my best self, right? And just be golden and shining all over the place. People looking at me like, what's she happy about? Because I am. And that's just being more at peace as well. Like that is just super important to me at this season in my life. I can't deal with the foolery. I really I value that, and I wish that's something that I had value when I was younger. You know what I mean? Like I wish I had that, but maybe I wouldn't appreciate it as much.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
Yeah. One more thing that I wanted to call out in your bio, you said you have 20 plant babies.
Honey, listen, just got another one the other day. I got 2 actually. Yes, I do. Yeah.
So do these plants have names, or
they all have names?
Okay.
They all have names.
Okay.
Yep.
So you have a substantial green thumb, apparently.
Well, there's a story behind that.
Okay.
A client of mine during COVID, we were meeting virtually, and she provided me, the first time we met in person, she gave me a pythos plant. And I thought to myself, I was like, oh goodness, if she come in this office and she asked me about this plant and it died, like, I'ma feel so terrible. And so, like, over time, I didn't share with her, like, that I was actually, like, getting into it. Like, I got real serious about it. I had downloaded the app. I had all this stuff. So we were meeting one day, and I was like, I just want to, like, share this with you. So I'm telling her about all this stuff I've done. She was like, Tamara, like, you are really, what have I done? But I'm like,
was this your first plant?
This was my first plant.
Okay.
Yeah, my first plant. And I actually named that plant after my grandma Lucille. So my great grandmother, whose kitchen I was standing in, that's her name, Lucille, and she's right at my desk. And so yeah, they're all around me. My family they sick and tired of me.
Okay.
Then they're gonna have to build on a new room. You gonna have to do something, because that's my therapy.
Yeah,
that is my therapy. So yeah, I love plants. I love taking care of them. Not so good on the outside. Like, I'm not a gardener on the outside, but my plant babies, they are very special, and they're treated very well.
Okay,
They're
I can imagine if they are all named and you know how many you have.
Yes.
Yeah. They probably are living a luxurious life.
Golden. Very much so. Very much so.
So if you had to leave some words to help those that are watching, again, whether it's through starting their therapeutic journey, encouraging them in the area of well-being, or if they are on their own grief journey, or because we know, grief is one of those things that we all at some point are going to have to deal with. Right. So if there's anything that's pulling at your heart that you would like to share, we'd like for you to look at that camera and just leave some words to help carry the viewers a little further.
Absolutely. So, of course, I'm a talk about grief. Then I think, listen, we lose every day, and that loss, for some is quite significant. For others, is smaller in nature. But either way, whatever it is, I'm referring back to the title of my first grief journal, which is Healing Through Time, and the brand that it is now. I picked that because I do not believe that time in itself heals all wounds. I believe it is what you do in between the ticks that brings about the healing. So do not just sit and wait and think that your loss, your grief experience is just going to go away and wane over time. This is the vessel that we have, and there's only so much that our body can hold. And eventually, if you don't do something positive to take care of yourself, to pour back into yourself, to find meaning, to build legacy, there's either going to be an implosion or an explosion. So whatever that resource is for you, if it's more spiritual focused, if it is therapeutic, you want to meet with a clinician or a life coach or whatever it is to get the support that you need. If it's journaling, there are tons of practical things that we can do in our home that are free, that don't require us to go out and do anything. Do those things, because it is the action. It's the action. It's not the thought alone. It's the action. And if we think that time is just going to come in and make us feel better and everything is going to be okay, then we're sadly mistaken. Do something. Do something.
I like that. Do something. That was good. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you again for saying yes.
Absolutely.
I've enjoyed our time together. Yes. And you guys make sure to go follow Tamara on her social media outlets. You can go to her website. Get the products. Like she said, all of us are going to have a grief journey at some point or another. So if you know someone, or maybe even for yourself, can invest in the journal or the card deck. You hate to have those things on hand just because, but in the day and time we're living in, you will know someone, if not yourself, that will walk that journey. And we want to be able to make sure that approaching that process, through that process, and after that process, we can be well.
Right.
Fully be well, because the generations that come behind us need us to be well. So thank you again, Tamara.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching. Be sure, if you have not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe. You can get notifications to know when the next episode is coming up. I'm so grateful that you guys have, some of you have come back to me after Women Who Win, which was 2 or 3 years ago now. But even those of you that are newly connected, I appreciate you supporting the Simply Tammy Show. I appreciate you watching. So stay connected, YouTube, Facebook, and on Instagram. And we will continue to bring some amazing people before you, local to the Greenville area. And you will also see some that I will interview virtually. So until next time.